Arriving in Pakistan was planned. Staying in Pakistan was a little more of a surprise.
How is it living in Pakistan for you?
The only two obstacles I have are driving and green chilies. That's it. Everything else is wonderful. Pakistanis are some of the most generous, charitable people I've ever met anywhere in the world until they get behind the wheel. And the minute they're behind the wheel, if there's one little opening, they're in there.
Yeah.
They're in there.
And are you driving yourself here?
I've got a driver, but I've also, I like to give him some time off and do driving on my own as well. And there's a tremendous opportunity to put all of these hotels that aren't on the internet on the internet. By the end of 2020, we had 1,600 hotels, 32,000 rooms, about 80% of the available inventory in the country on the internet. That was when the light bulb went off and I realized that the opportunity in Pakistan was exactly like what I'd experienced. Pretty much everywhere in the world that is a mature market does about 60% of all the business online. You can call Toronto, Bali, Rome, small hotels, big hotels, third parties, direct, it's all. So we've got 1,600 hotels on the platform. You can go to our partner sites and book all of them, but that's not to say all 1,600 have done bookings. All the Scandinavian countries, right? 1 out of every 2 people live alone. The place on the planet where the fewest people live alone, guess?
Pakistan.
Afghanistan.
Oh, wow.
Second was Pakistan.
Wow. That's
Pakistan,
crazy.
it was 0.7%. 0.7%. It was like 0.3% in Afghanistan. Nobody lives alone, right? You have this beautiful intergenerational where you have like parents, grandparents, kids, grandkids, 4 generations living. And my employees, they come, they're like, my family's driving me crazy, I need to get away, right? So Pakistanis will travel together and they'll travel to escape and be individuals.
Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome to another episode of How Does It Work, a podcast by Pro Pakistani. Our guest today is the CEO and co-founder of Ascendants and Roomph, Andre Privateer.
Privateer, exactly.
Yeah, I got that right? Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So firstly, if you could just introduce us a little bit, how did you end up in Pakistan? What are you doing in Pakistan? And what's sort of the future for Roomph and Ascendants?
Arriving in Pakistan was planned. Staying in Pakistan was a little more of a surprise. I was hired as a consultant by the Hashoo Group to look at PC hotels and Hotel One, look at how they were doing their business online, look at their technology platform and whatnot. And within a few months of arriving at the very end of 2018, it dawned on me that Pakistan was very much like Indonesia, another big country that was fast growing and whatnot. And I was able to sit with the deputy chairman, Mirtaza Hashwani, after a month or two. And I said, listen, there's a tremendous opportunity to put all of these hotels that aren't on the internet on the internet. We can take all the technology that the group is using that hasn't really been rethought or looked at from a strategic standpoint, pull it out, replace it with cloud-based open API technology, and essentially take that same platform, save the group money, but take that same platform and flood the market, give it to 1-star, 2-star, 3-star hotels from Gwadar to Gilgit. So we replaced the technology at the PC hotels and the Hotel One group, and we took it and we hired a 20-person sales team. They started in Gwadar, they finished up at Gilgit, and by the end of 2020, we had 1,600 hotels, 32,000 rooms, about 80% of the available inventory in the country on the internet. So that's the story.
And what were you doing before this? You were hired as a consultant by the Hashwani Group, but were you in...
No, my background, it's a good question. I was an internet guy who then fell into hospitality a little bit by accident. I started working with a company out of New York called Hotel Rooms. I opened their first office in Europe. Then I opened an office in Dubai. I opened an office in Thailand.
Okay.
So that was how I got familiar with the Far East, and that's how I discovered Indonesia in 2012. So we had hired guys in Philippines, in Vietnam, in Thailand. The Far East was exploding. Everybody was online. They were doing business on the internet. And the poor guy that I had hired in Indonesia, he's like, boss, nobody's interested in the internet. And the first week that I was in Pakistan, I sat with the head of sales at the PC, and he's like, I don't know why they hired you. Nobody's doing any business on the internet. So that was when the light bulb went off, and I realized that the opportunity in Pakistan was exactly like what I'd experienced, but watch from the sidelines in Indonesia.
And have you seen it grow in Pakistan the same way it grew in Indonesia?
Tremendously. That first year, 2019, 2 to 3% was done online. January 2021, PC Karachi, PC Lahore were doing 23, 24% online. Avari, they've told me they do 30%, Booking.com. Nishat's doing 30% online. So I think the key is, and when we've had conversations with investors and other people, pretty much everywhere in the world that is a mature market does about 60% of all the business online. You can call Toronto, Bali, Rome, small hotels, big hotels, third parties, direct. Yeah, it's all done online.
And as this market continues to grow, you guys will sort of be the back end to, say, BookMe or other things, or will you come to the forefront and do B2C as well?
So the race is on. We view our business as the digital infrastructure for frontier markets. So we're looking to enter into Egypt and Nigeria as well, because the economics and the market behavior is very similar to Pakistan. So we're interested in providing the software that enables hotels and hospitality suppliers to do business online. We've also created a marketplace for budget hotels. So there's a huge gap in the market, right? You go to PC, you go to Avari, you know what you can count on. You spend 18, 25, 30,000 rupees and you have a great room and everything's clean, everything's reliable. Under 5,000, there's nothing. 5 to 10,000, it's a crapshoot. Maybe it's going to be okay, maybe it's not. So when our account managers were covering the territory, going from Gwadar to Gilgit, if the room had air conditioning, Wi-Fi, we gave it a 1 star. It might still have broken chip tile in the thing, but if you're driving in Sukkur and it's 50 degrees, you're really happy to have that air conditioner, right? Yeah. So that fulfills a purpose. Then if the 2 star is priced between 5,000 and 10,000, they fix the chip tile, the bed is reliable, it's okay, but you don't really want to stay there, right? In our 3-star properties, so I mean, the government, one of the first things I understood when I arrived in the country, was there was no reliable star ratings. Yeah. So within the budget hotel segment under our Roomph brand, so that's a consumer product, but it's a consumer product that really nobody else is playing in. Like if you take Rumi, for example, they want to be priced at 15,000. They're competing with sort of PC Rawalpindi. They're competing with Hotel One. But we're really interested in those, college students who've got a budget of 6,000 and they're going to split it 3 ways.
And that is the largest consumer segment, I would imagine, because Pakistan, obviously, like the dispensable income is lower than other places.
Well, we feel like it will be by 2030.
Right.
So we'd like to be everywhere and a reliable brand by 2030. Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And right now, as the market continues to expand, is there a sort of demand for that 5K, 10K bedroom?
It's funny. We are going to be announcing a really big deal on the 25th of November, and it's with a bank, and essentially they want to use a B2B platform to enter into the space and compete with Sasta Ticket, compete with BookMe, and we're providing the whole technology infrastructure for that. And they said, we want to be really competitive in the 4,000 to 8,000 rupee space because they're a bank, they have large number of consumers and they want to, and I went back to my data guy and I said, look at all the 120,000 transactions we did last year. And I said, I want to know exactly where they fall on the price per night spectrum. Yeah. And what was odd was I thought that 4,000 to 8,000 would be exactly that. And the reality was about 45% of the transactions are 15K and up. So the 4-star, the 5-star, those of us who can afford, who are in that market segment, we're used to booking online. So we make up a disproportionate amount of the total transactions because we have the spending power to do that. And oddly enough, the 4 to 8, 55% was 6,000 and under. So these are all the different sources. This isn't just Booking.com, Expedia, Agoda. BookMe's doing great traffic. They're doing great production. Jazz Mosafir launched as well, so we also give them the hotel supply as well. So yeah, if you take all of those combined, surprisingly enough, 55% is under 8,000, and then 45% is above. So that sweet spot 4 to 8, it tends to be, yeah.
And the 4 to 8,000, how many of those guest houses or smaller hotel rooms, etc., are on the internet now? You said that you covered from Gwadar to Gilgit, right?
These are great questions.
Yeah.
So we've got 1,600 hotels on the platform. You can go to our partner sites and book all of them, but that's not to say all 1,600 have done bookings. we have some designations. So we have what we refer to as cash cows that do 10 or more room nights a week online, and we have 350 to 450. We have those that have done at least one booking in the last month. We're at about 675, 675, 700. So, but it's warming up. Every month, the situation improves just a little bit more,
And
a little better.
is there a safety and security issue? Do people, so for example, has there ever been a case where someone stayed at a 4 to 8K room, something dingy or shady has happened, and they blame you for it?
I'm smiling because when I first got started in 2019, right, very little work was being done online. I would send my team, young men and women, right? Obviously, I come from a world where, men and women are equal. And some of my young sales people who are women, she's like, please don't send me to that hotel. Yeah, there's some absolute dingy, terrible hotels that the shady. So what we've done is, again, with this ranking system, 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, what we do is we have a call support team that the morning of check-in, so these are all independent hotels. We've created a marketplace, but when you book through our platform, we then are aware of the booking. If the check-in is tomorrow, the night before, we'll call the hotel, make sure that room is available for Ali Khan and his party, right? Then the day they check in, we call Ali Khan, and we say, how's everything? Is the room clean? Does it meet your expectations or does it exceed your expectations? When it's 1, 2, 3. So when we're on the phone making sure everything's okay for that guest, we actually do the guest review for them. This ensures user-generated content, user feedback. So it's a sort of organic ranking policy of hotels. So a hotel that we had ranked as a 3-star when we met them 6 months ago, if we get 3 negative guest reviews, they're no longer a 3-star, they're a 2. We demote them, right?
Okay.
So that's super fluid. So that feedback loop ensures reliability. And then from our marketplace, we're now working on a premium segment where security, 24/7 security, will be present there.
Okay.
So the key is to be able to offer security at franchise properties under our brand, right? To ensure that kind of security. Absolutely. We have more and more women who are traveling for the first time. They're traveling with friends. They're traveling alone. So that's absolutely required, yeah.
And what sort of percentage, you seem like a numbers guy, is there for corporate bookings, and how much is it just, people traveling for vacation and stuff like that? So are you working with organizations as well?
Yeah. We added 3, 4 more corporate salespeople. What we've got is the embassies, you've got Nestle, Unilever, they spend a lot, right? We're also interested in a segment of pesticide salesmen, fertilizer salesmen, insurance traveling, where their per diems are 6,000, 7,000 per night.
Yeah.
On the corporate side, there's absolutely no solution for those, right? These companies don't have travel desks. Engro's got a burgeoning, effective travel desk, right? The textiles sales companies in Islamabad don't. So our ability to actually provide an app where you have discounted rates, wholesale rates to them, to their travelers, so absolutely, we're looking at that. In terms of the number percentage between corporate versus leisure, it really depends. I mean, it's hard for me to say in that you've got segments, 5-star, 4-star, 3-star in places KLI, Karachi, Lahore. Corporate is a huge part of it. All the northern territories, everything that's going on in Hunza, Skardu, Kalam, obviously it's not. It's all FIT. Okay. FIT is leisure.
Okay.
So all those segments, the whole point, and sort of like when I spoke at Disrupt 2 weekends ago, the whole point was everything's moving online. Corporate moves online. We're offering a corporate sales product to those people shortly. Leisure will move online thanks to people like BookMe, Sasta Ticket, Roomph, our own product. And then, all of those segments matter. And by digitizing all of that, you go from 2% to 20% to that 60% that we talked about.
And in terms of leisure, one is the hotel bookings themselves. Do you guys offer other services such as, Find My Adventure would book skydiving, or I don't know if we do skydiving here, but whatever. I mean, things like adventure sports and things along those lines. Is that something you guys are interested in or not really?
I spoke to somebody we may partner with. It's a bootleg startup out of Karachi called Porter.
Okay.
And Porter, Pakistan, he says he's got 200, 300 hotels that aren't on anybody's list anywhere.
Okay.
And he's very much adventure, leisure. So he's going to carve a niche of a certain consumer following that likes adventure travel, that likes those things, and we will enable him. When we're in Skardu opening 2 properties, we meet with the the Tour Operator Board Association, the Tour Operator Association of Baltistan. And the secretary, a guy by the name of Shamshad Hussain, has been great. He's been really helpful. But one of the things we're going to do for them is we're going to give them the same B2B platform that's connected to international partners. So right now, when somebody in Spain who wants to hike K2 or somebody in Denmark that wants to visit Baltistan and do all that, it's all Instagram. It's all Instagram based because they start looking around, then they find them, they contact that. But that's because the infrastructure isn't there. So you've got supplier and client meeting through Instagram and disintermediating the whole value chain, right? But if you can give a platform that allows them to construct their tours and put their tour, so travel from Skardu to Hunza to Kalam, it's a 14-day tour, do this, that thing. They can package that tour. It's exactly what Find My Adventure was doing.
Yeah.
But it's connecting that to the entire international distribution network. And I sat with the DC of Sugar and I said, listen, your guys here, they can sell this domestically to a Pakistani for $700. That same product they can sell to a Spaniard or a Danish person for $2,000. And so that's really, Pakistan will be on the international map when these products are connected to a global network. And we're doing that.
And currently, you mentioned, of course, the Hashwani Group is involved, but are you guys looking to raise an outside round? Is that something you guys have in mind? Venture capital and such?
So we're doing a pre-Series A now, and we're looking to raise $5 million to essentially solidify our consumer launch here in Pakistan and to get started and begin in Egypt and Nigeria. We're also looking at a larger raise. There's some acquisitions we'd like to do.
Okay.
So we're looking at that as well.
Okay. And outside of the technology space,
Yeah.
how is it living in Pakistan for you?
The only 2 obstacles I have are driving and green chilies. That's it. Everything else is wonderful.
So, driving because it's chaotic or driving because of some other reason?
So, Pakistanis are some of the most generous, charitable people I've ever met anywhere in the world until they get behind the wheel. And the minute they're behind the wheel, if there's one little opening, they're in there.
Yeah.
They're in there.
And are you driving yourself here?
I've got a driver, but I've also, I like to give him some time off and do driving on my own as well.
Fair enough. And I'm assuming Pakistani food is a bit too spicy?
So, I grew up in California, and in California, you've got Mexican food. Mexican food's really spicy.
Of course.
And as a young man, we would sit there and how hot can you stand it, right? And then now, I do working lunches and 4 or 5 of us are sitting around a table and I'm eating, can be anything. It can be, I really like achar, the pickled mutton and stuff. But then you get a chili and I start hiccuping and it's really embarrassing, because I'm sitting there and I can't speak because my eyes are watering. Yeah.
And have you traveled?
Of course, yeah.
What are the places you like here?
We've made 5-6 trips to Skardu.
Okay.
Skardu is a rare gem because Hunza, the locals in both places are wonderful, but Hunza is more used to tourism. It's a little fresher, it's a little more raw in Skardu, and when you've got a desert that sits in between 2 ends of the Sugar River and the Indus River, and you've just got it's a surreal topography. Skardu, I've never seen anything like it, right? Of course, Lahore, Karachi, I go to regularly.
Where are you based? Where are you living?
I'm based here in Islamabad, of course.
And out of those 3 cities, why did you choose to live here? Or was it just, for work?
So, I haven't given up my place. I still have a flat in Paris. I go back and forth.
Okay.
And
so you're French, but you grew up in the U.S.?
I grew up in the United States, yeah.
Okay. But your family and everything is in France?
Family's kind of everywhere.
Okay.
Got a mom in California, father in Seattle.
Okay.
Daughter in the United Kingdom.
So who's in France besides your apartment?
That's it. It's an empty apartment. Yeah.
Fair enough. And sorry, we were talking about Pakistan and the different, living in Islamabad. Do you like living in Islamabad?
So Pakistan is a really easy place to love. Because of work, because of my business partner, and so I've gotten to know a lot of Pakistanis, and I really appreciate those friendships. And also, being in Islamabad, I get to benefit from the whole sort of expat.
Community.
So I've been here from 3 years. You see expats come and go, and it's like it's another wave. And the crazy thing is that a place that can be foreign, like Pakistan, is now familiar, and I have all these people asking me. Yeah.
And is there like a language barrier? Is Urdu can you speak Urdu? Learn any words yet?
I can't. I'm lazy. I speak French. I speak a little Portuguese, a little German. Yeah. No.
And you mentioned Murtaza Hashwani a few times. Of
course.
He's your partner. Did you ever read his dad's autobiography?
I have.
Yeah, that was fantastic, actually.
You read it?
Yeah. So one of the reasons we wanted to start this podcast, and coincidentally, since we were talking about it, was I read that book, and that was the first time I read a book. You know, you read all these like direct from Dell, or you read like XYZ entrepreneurs in the US autobiography, and you can't relate it to Pakistan because, you know, this is such a different market, and I'm sure you've seen both sides, so you have an idea. So when I read that book, I was like, wow, you know, this speaks a little more to me because it's got the family dynamic, it's got the political landscape, because this is Pakistan, right? I mean, it's more of a jungle than the concrete jungle in comparison to the United States or the large rounds that they're raising over here. How different has Pakistan been for you in comparison to the other places you've worked?
Let me answer that question, because it's actually this isn't my first startup. I had my first startup at 28.
And where was that based?
It was based in Northern California.
Okay.
I've bootstrapped. I had an incubator where I had a French guy. I was a French guy. I was a German and a British guy. We took Silicon Valley startups. We launched them in Europe. So I did that about 10 years ago. And what I love about this is that the solutions that I would have fallen back on in my world, quote unquote, simply don't work. And it forces me to be sharp and to spot failure before it hurts, right? One of the best things that we've done was, for example, I've been in the hotel industry for a while. So I've got a guy, Citizen M, if you travel in Europe, if you're in London, they've got probably the best 150-pound rooms, tiny rooms, great social space. It's a guy who was in the textile business.
Okay.
He didn't hire anybody from hotel school. He hires theater students and clowns to run the front office and to do the whole thing, because they're charming, they're engaging, right?
Yeah, that's
just for the energy level, right?
Yeah.
So Citizen M is a brilliant, and there was a French guy named Alex who was the CTO of Citizen M.
Okay.
And he and I kind of knew each other. He reached out. He said, what are you up to? So we got into a conversation. So he's all technology. That's supposed to be my forte. And I'm like, dude, the most effective things we've done are taking solutions that Pakistanis viscerally understand. So for example, one of the challenges we faced, July, August, when all the rooms in the north sell out, all of the hotels that list their inventory on our platform, they turn it off because everyone drives. They're flexible with the rate, and it's like, and it hurts because this is peak demand. We should be selling rooms, and all of a sudden, all that demand disappears.
Yeah.
So we put a container, a branded container. We put jackets on runners, and the same guys that would sit there with cardboard boxes and say hotel, right? They will bring their people to our hotel, and that's our customer acquisition. So digital, so like when I speak to investors or the board, they're like, what's the customer acquisition cost? And I'm like, wow, it should be $5 would be great, $7 is a little expensive. I said, but when you give 300 rupees to the guy who drops off somebody at our front desk, that's a Pakistani solution to acquisition.
That's getting your hands dirty.
And it's verifiable, and we know they show up, and it's like clean. It's really, really nice. So these are the kinds of things. When I'm speaking to the French guy who's in Holland and we're talking about tech solutions, I'm like, this is probably the most effective thing we did last summer.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I hope that answers your question, right?
Yeah. So do you feel
but that's what keeps it fun, you know?
It keeps it unique, right? It's so different to maybe it is how it is in the West. Do you feel like the majority of tourism will be domestic in the next 5 to 10 years in Pakistan, or do you feel like it'll be international tourism?
No, that's a great question. The thing that I love is everybody is afraid of tourism shocks, right? So COVID, obviously, everyone felt that viscerally. Everything shut down.
Yeah.
I remember we took our forecast and we dialed it down by 35% during COVID. And I'm like, okay, we're going to be 35% off plan. We finished the year at 5% under. Okay. And the reason why is every well-heeled Pakistani who typically goes to Dubai or Istanbul or Kuala Lumpur, they had to discover Pakistan. They filled the hotels. there was pent-up demand, so people were tired of being at home.
Yeah.
They traveled, and we did really well. So essentially, our interest, our collective vision that we will provide great, affordable accommodation to the growing middle class. If foreigners never discover Pakistan, we still have a viable business model. So that's the idea.
And in terms of if domestic tourism is to ride this wave, is that why the 4 to 8K
Absolutely.
is the most important part of it?
For sure.
And in that sort of domestic tourism demand, what sort of, you get all this data, so just for the layman.
Yeah, of course.
Is it young people? I don't know if I count as young anymore, but is it 30 and under? Or what is the sort of demographic of people traveling across Pakistan?
I don't have the data because we don't ask the ages of the people when they check in and out of hotels.
Right.
I'll tell you who we target. I was at a DigiLeaders and I said, why do people travel? And I looked at the sort of like psychological human fulfillment, why do people travel, right? And in Pakistan, I think that families will travel together and individuals will travel to escape their families, right? You all know what I love about Pakistan. I mean, I had my daughter on the phone the other day and I said, in which country do 49% of the population live alone? And she said, Dad, that's so sad. Why are you thinking about that? And I said, I would just take a guess. It was Norway. Finland was 48%. All the Scandinavian countries, right? 1 out of every 2 people live alone. The place on the planet where the fewest people live alone, guess?
Pakistan.
Afghanistan.
Oh, wow.
Second was Pakistan.
Wow. That's
Pakistan,
crazy.
it was 0.7%. 0.7%. It was like 0.3% in Afghanistan. Nobody lives alone, right? You have this beautiful intergenerational where you have like parents, grandparents, kids, grandkids, 4 generations living. And, you know, my employees, they come, they're like, my family's driving me crazy. I need to get away, right? So Pakistanis will travel together and they'll travel to escape and be individuals.
In terms of, you mentioned family dynamic, right? How was it growing up for you? And do you think that this, because it's interesting, right? I always talk to people who are not from here and they're like, oh, you live with your parents, or, oh, you know, that's so, it's different. It's alien to most people who are not from here. Do you think there's any pros or cons to that? And now you've seen both cultures sort of up close and personal, right? What do you think are the advantages or disadvantages generally as a human being with things like that?
Oh, that's a great question. I'll tell you what I really appreciate about Pakistan. If you come from a Western world where anything's possible, right? I have a lot of friends, and then the younger generation as well. We are collectively a little lost. If you can have anything, anytime, be anything, do anything, what do, right? In many cases, the discussion, I hired a guy recently. I said, why does an engineer, a guy with 2 engineering degrees, get an MBA in marketing? I said, your dad was an engineer, right? And he says, yeah. And I said, what did you say to your dad to let him get you an MBA in marketing? He said, I didn't tell him, right? So these stories are kind of wonderful. They're wonderful in that you kind of have to fight for what you want. And it's a gentle fight because the family structure is so important. And like anything of value, there's a compromise, right? So I find it really attractive, and there's all spectrum. I have some Pakistani friends who are freer than anybody I've ever met anywhere in the world, and then others that, you know, we have some women in the office that work from home. Right. We respect that. Yeah. And I think that, you know, what I'm sensing is that I've been here 3 years now, and there's an ongoing dialogue, and these conversations are happening.
And they're changing.
Yeah, of course. And, you know, some people don't like the change. Other people, the change isn't happening fast enough. And, you know, I'm an observer. It's not up to me. You understand? I'm a guest.
So you have that fly on the wall advantage as well. You get to see
very much
the world in a very different way. And in terms of, so the family dynamic is there. And since you're involved with a family business in the Hashoo Group, and that's very different. So in the United States, there are family-run businesses, but they've kind of dwindled down over the years. Is it different, or is there challenges working in a family-run business or working with a family-run business in comparison to, say, the kind of businesses you were used to?
Well, let's just say that the Hashoo Group is composed of a number of companies.
Yes, of course.
And all those companies are run very professionally.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is that family dynamic probably happens at a level that I simply know nothing about.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I do work in partnerships with other family groups. And I don't really know much about that either.
Okay.
It tends to be ownership and things like that. You know, I think that family-run businesses get to a certain size, and you know, I can't say that. I've had some partnerships with family-run businesses where things didn't happen because there was a disagreement at a family level.
Right.
So your question is spot on. That just hasn't been the case with the Hashoo Group.
All right,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah. And when you first moved here, did anyone think you were FBI, CIA, something like that?
Of course. You want to know something crazy? The day that I arrived was the day that they closed the old airport. I was the second last flight arriving.
Wow.
There was one more flight, and then it closed. And that was my introduction to Pakistan. And, you know, as somebody, you know, I've opened businesses and I've conducted, so I did a 10-day project in Mumbai in 2010. I've traveled pretty extensively in India, so I know the subcontinent well. I've worked throughout Far East. I've opened offices in Prague, in Denmark, in Holland, in Amsterdam. So it's like, the funny thing is when you know one language, you have to unlearn your language to adopt a second one, right? The minute you speak two languages, you don't have the same barrier. You don't have to unlearn something. So I arrive here, I'm open. Do you understand? It's like the things that I observe don't shock me. Yeah. I kind of welcome them. And I was just, you know, I think about that. There's a beautiful poetry to Islamabad, like on Juma prayer on Friday, where everyone's walking to the mosque and it's slow just after a monsoon. And it's like, these memories I'll keep with me for a lifetime. And it's like, you all don't see it because you know it.
Yeah,
you know?
that makes sense because we're living it.
Of
we
course,
can't observe it from a bird's eye view.
Yeah.
And do you see yourself living in Islamabad for, you know, a long time in the future?
So, sadly, the success of what we're setting out to do will force me to spend time in Egypt, in Nigeria. And I still try to keep a life back in Europe together
How often are you back
as best
home?
I can. I'm here 2 months, 2.5 months. I'll go back for 3 weeks.
Okay.
And then I'm here. And I've got a great senior team. The senior team is more and more independent. So yeah, 2023, I'll probably be spending less time here.
And
sadly,
you'll be in Egypt or
that's the
Nigeria.
plan.
How are they? You know, we're always clunked together with Indonesia a lot, Nigeria, Egypt to some extent as well. Is it because of the population size and where we are as a country, or what are the dynamics as to why we're clunked together?
My very first public speaking was Disrupt Conference in November of 2019. I had been here for less than a year.
Was that in Karachi?
Yeah, I was in
Yeah,
Karachi.
I think I saw that.
And they put me on Sunday morning, I think at 9 o'clock, and I think there were 8 people in the audience.
Yeah, I think I was one of those.
Karachiites don't wake up before 11.
Yeah,
so if
I
you
think,
gotta-
by the way, I was one of those 8.
One of those 8 guys?
Because in 2019, I remember, it's a long
Well,
story.
I
I'll tell
appreciate you
later.
coming. Thank you.
Yeah, so,
So the crazy thing about Indonesia and Pakistan, primarily Muslim, 99.9 or 99.1%. Like it's for all intents and purposes entirely
Muslim.
You've got 4 regions. You've got 4 big islands: Sulawesi, Java, Sumatra, the other one. So you've got a GNP that I think was about $3,000 in 2012 there, and I think it was about $2,000 per capita here. An aspiring middle class, fastest growing consumer markets. So yeah, the similarities with Indonesia are undeniable. And what was great about that was there was a guy, I can't remember his name, from Gobi Ventures. I can see him, he's got glasses. He was one of the first foreigners, I think he's Chinese or Chinese American. And he spoke at that same conference, and he spoke the day before, and he spoke about the similarities to Indonesia, and I had no idea he was going to say that. And now, you know, after the 2019, 2020, 2021, last 2021, 350 million. The first 6 months of this year, another 150 million. So $500 million of VC money has come into Pakistan. And that happened in Indonesia in 2012 to 2014. So the similarities are there.
And in Indonesia, was there a burst as well? So we, experienced a bit of a rough patch right now with a certain recession and also some of the startups shutting down. Do you think that that's a negative or a positive? It's obviously not a positive, but how badly will it affect the future, in your opinion?
There's a guy, I don't want to name any names, but I'm going to distance myself from this comment because it comes much better from a local than it does from me. And he says if we are to succeed as a nation of startups, we have to change our mentality. So again, these are his words, not mine. I echo them to my team often. Essentially, you've got a situation where you're going to your line manager for approval.
Right.
Going for approval, right? If you have a VP and you have a director and you have a manager and you have an executive, right? If you tell your VP, I have this vision, we should be doing this 6 months from now. He speaks to the directors and the managers and it goes down. You have all these kids. It's this vicious game of telephone that we say in the West. You call it Chinese whisper, right? Where you're in elementary school and I whisper something to you and you whisper something to Mubashra. And by the time it gets to the last person, it's totally changed.
Yeah.
That's a real problem. It's a real problem because you move slow. Every baby step needs to be validated. Did I do this right? By your line. And it's this thing where everybody's looking for validation before they take that step.
Right.
I spoke to somebody yesterday who's one of my brightest employees. She's amazing. She wrote about an algorithm this was just a paper she had published, and it was an algorithm for COVID detection.
Wow.
And it was just like full on.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not going to name any names. I said, when you wrote that paper, I said, who did you ask for approval for? And she said, I researched it and I did it. And I said, there you go. I said, you've got 2 projects now. Don't ask anybody. What you need to do is everybody who's above you, say, I'm doing this because I thought about this, and I'm taking this decision because. And it's just this like, you've got a hurricane, right? That hurricane has inert energy, and that's what a startup needs to move forward quickly. And if you kill that inert energy by trying to tame it. So it becomes this delicate balance between oversight and then allowing people the freedom to run. And what actually makes a job interesting, why someone would want to get out of bed and actually do their job, is because they see themselves growing and being fulfilled within that evolution of mastery, right? Mastery is a concept. There's a guy from the 90s or 2000, Daniel Pink, right? Why people work. Carrots and sticks, work, good job, reward, or, vision, mastery, purpose. So one of the things that I wrestle with, I've got a small portion of the office that is asking for carrots and sticks because that's what they know. Yeah. And then I have some of others who give me a project, let me run with it. So my job is forever balancing that. And when I get that rhythm right, I'm no longer needed here. I can leave.
Then as they grow in independence, they'll grow with venom, and that's how it
For sure. Yeah.
will expand. So I'm not going to take too much more of your time.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just going to ask one last question.
Yeah.
What's sort of the end goal for you? You mentioned mastery, purpose, vision, right? What's the vision for Roomph? What's the vision for Ascendants? What's your vision for the end? What's the end goal?
So my near-term goal is to change a scarcity mindset into an abundance mindset. And culturally, economically, I'm not here to say why it happens, but it's like one deal. I've got some people that are calling 5, 10 vendors. We have this digital platform that's transaction enabled, but we're still calling to get 3 percentage points more. Part of it's wanting to game the system, have a little more win, right?
Yeah.
So when there's so much business online in Pakistan that scarcity mindset surrenders to a mindset of trust and partnership, my mission here will be filled. So that's the Ascendant B2B partnership mindset. That's the long-term goal. And then I think for Roomph, this marketplace, nobody thinks about Amazon, nobody thinks about Daraz. It's a reflex, right? When Roomph becomes a reflex, that there's a large segment of the population, because that value proposition resonates and people sort of blindly default to it because they get their affordable hotels there, then that business will be done, right? So those are the long-term goals. And then on a personal level, I think, running a business of this scale, assuming 2 years down the road, Egypt and Nigeria are firing, right? You just manage momentum, results, numbers, right? You become further detached from the actual product and process. And I'm somebody who really, really enjoys that. I remember when we redid, one of the first projects we did was we did the PC Hotel's website. Right. And I sat down with the senior team there and I said, when you scroll your mouse over the book button, there's a little trim that closes. and it shows you, it's your call to action that shows you're on there to do that. And we were working with some really good designers, the people I'd worked with in the past that were overseas, some great designers that were here locally. It was a collaboration. When you actually collaborate with like-minded people on something small, there's a great sense of satisfaction. So you lose that satisfaction when you do something at scale.
Yeah.
You get a different satisfaction. It's no less rewarding, it's just different. You can live in LA, or you can live in Paris, you can live in Islamabad. They're just three different lives.
Yeah.
There's not one that's better or worse, they're just different. So I think that, personally, when this all works and it doesn't need me anymore, I'll rejoice in something small.
That's actually really deep and really interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the
All right.
podcast. I really enjoyed this.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you enjoy our content, please do subscribe to our channel. And we'll see you for the next podcast. Thank you.